Welcome back to another episode of Grim Captivation. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Hello, with the voice from the ether. Just kidding, it's just my wife, in case if anybody is curious if I ever start talking not to the camera, but to somebody else. So.
Or miss it.
So yeah, this is Grim Captivation. First of all, thank you everybody for checking out the first episode of Grim Captivation. I didn't expect a lot of views, but it's very appreciated. So glad that some people kind of got into it, and yeah, I'm just really happy with the first episode, how it goes, and I'm gonna work harder to improve the show. Hopefully for this episode I'll include a few pictures and whatnot, because this episode is all about spirits and ghosts and like kind of creatures of the night across the world, across cultures pretty much. And obviously it's not all of them, because you could make a whole entire show about that pretty much, because there's hundreds and probably thousands of ghosts and tales of spirits and malevolent entities and all that stuff. So this one I chose a good handful actually, that are pretty much all across the world and have their own unique things about them, I suppose. So hopefully you guys enjoy what I have selected, and if any of you guys have something that you would like me to look into with like ghost entities and all that stuff, just feel free to let me know. And as always, I am reading from kind of a script, but mostly descriptions from pretty much a bunch of like websites that I just kind of like research on and go through and find all these interesting things. So yeah, so here we go, headway into episode 2. All across the nations of the world, there is always bound to be a spooky story or an esoteric telling of dark entities or spirits. What lurks behind the shadows, shapeshifts into ordinary things, or perhaps even attacks during the daytime, is told throughout thousands of stories, probably millions by now, worldwide. This list is, a very short list of the many, many entities and the creatures throughout the world. But for this episode, it's more to demonstrate the variety of all these fearful figures. These few that I've chosen are based on the personal findings, while others I just kind of like know about. Some of these have similar traits to another, while others are very different and unique to one another. So the first one that we have on the list that I have taken a not really obsession but a liking to is the Albtraum. This is from Germany. Yeah, you know all about it.
Oh yeah.
The Alp is best known for its shape-shifting abilities, similar to the creatures from the werewolf lore. It may change into cats, pigs, dogs, snakes, or even a small white butterfly. Apparently, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It has also been said that it can fly like a bird and ride a horse. So it can be very small, or it can be very big, like humanoid size. I guess that's considered big.
Yeah.
But, the Alp actually always wears a hat. So it's
Nice.
it's kind of a hat man, because I don't know, because like the hat man's very much like shadow people and stuff like that, and then this is more like Germanic folklore, so it's interesting. So this hat is known as a Tarnkap, which is a literal translation being camouflage cap, so or cap of concealment, which is simply a hat, but it actually it gives the Alp magic powers and the ability to turn invisible while it's worn. It's pretty much like the cloak of invisibility. You just put it on, invisible. Yeah, and the hat is actually visible no matter what shape the Alp takes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. So, an Alp who has lost the hat will actually offer a great reward for its safe return. But the Alp also possesses an evil eye, whose gaze will inflict illness and misfortune. Removing or damaging the eye also removes the Alp's malicious intentions. So, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, this is just like little things too, is like the Albtraum is, or Alp, I should say, a lot of it's just Alp, is that it pretty much like sits on top of people during their sleep, and so pretty much it gives them this sort of sleep paralysis, and it kind of like feeds off of like that essence in a way, that living essence, and so that malicious intentions is pretty much just to cause harm and give people bad nightmares and stuff like that, from what I've heard. And this stuff that I'm reading is like extra stuff. So the Alp is very, I don't know, he's not a very nice guy. So it's not a nice creature.
Doesn't sound like it.
No, but I like it. It's really cool. Yeah, because there was this, hopefully I can get this picture on screen. There's this album cover by this band called Vogelfrey. And it's really, really creepy. And the song itself is called Albtraum, and that's where I first heard it. So yeah, I just thought it was really cool. So the second entity I have on the list is called a boot, but it's BHOOT or BHUT. So I think like the way that I pronounce it is just boot, like you're wearing a boot, but I guess it's an entity from Indian culture. So yeah, it's interesting. So this is a type of ghost from Indian culture and analogous to traditional Western ghosts. Specifically, this is a lingering spirit of a dead person kept in the world of the living thanks to one reason or another. In the case of the boot, the reason for their continued presence varies from region to region, as well as the story. Common reasons include the nature of their deaths, lingering regrets, or even the failure of the living to perform a traditional funeral rite. A boot usually has the appearance they were living, although they usually possess the ability to take an animal form. So that's pretty cool. With that being said, regardless of their appearance, a boot's feet will always face backwards.
Whoa.
Which tend to give their nature away. Obviously, that'd be kind of obvious. Yeah. They also cast no shadows and will avoid entering sacred places at all costs. They may also sometimes dress entirely in white and speak in nasal voices. So, yeah.
So that's one of my nasal voices.
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny actually. You just like see like a cat or something like, hey, you didn't do the traditional funeral right. And then it's like, whoa, his paws are backwards. It's a boot. I just thought it was really interesting though, where
that's really wow.
Basically, they stay there because of something that I don't know. I would say like an unjust death, but even after death, even if I guess like family or friends didn't do the the funeral rites pretty much the correct way, that could also be part of it. So I don't know, but it is just like a lingering ghost. It doesn't say anything about it being malicious or anything like that. So it's like it's just like a spirit that just wanders pretty much. So I think that makes sense.
I like it.
It's unique. So, but so that's the boot. Another one which I included in the first episode is called the doppelganger. So I'm gonna go a little bit more into this because I always thought it's pretty cool. I don't know. So this is a type from the northern European regions, mostly from German folklore. So I just wanted to include this. This is the second German folklore thing, but I don't think I have any more. Doppelgangers supposedly mirror the appearance of a person, obviously, which a lot of people know. People who encounter their own doppelgangers tend to suffer from very bad luck, usually ending in death. While commonly associated with the German folklore, doppelgangers feature in cultures like worldwide, pretty much. Irish folklore, for example, has a similar type of ghost called a fetch instead. Philippine folklore even has ways in which a person can cast off the bad luck that a doppelganger brings. This includes immediately taking off your clothes, turning them inside out, and then putting them back on. So it's interesting. Another way involves immediately going home, taking a bath to wash off the bad luck. So just scrub it off pretty much. A person who sees another person's doppelganger, so like they think that they see like a friend or family or something like that, they can also cast that bad luck off by simply slapping the real person in the face. So they just go, hey, I saw you earlier. What? Oh, just kidding. No, I didn't. Not anymore. Now you don't have bad luck. I just thought it was kind of funny.
I'll start doing that to you.
Hey.
Just kidding.
But yeah, from the first episode, a doppelganger is literally like a copy of a person, and that's fine. And yeah, it's a bad type of entity where if you see it or if you see somebody else's doppelganger, it means like a harbinger of like bad luck, injury, or death, pretty much. The way that I feel like doppelgangers are is that it's trying to replace you in a way, and that's why it's always considered doppelgangers are always considered bad, like a bad entity. Like it's like they look exactly like you. They're probably studying your patterns, the way that you walk, you eat, you converse with people, all that stuff. It's really creepy. So it's a reason why they're not considered the good type of spirits. So next on the list is a Dybbuk, which is very interesting. Yeah, I really like this one. This is a type of ghost from Jewish folklore, and it typically involves the soul of a dead person which remains in the world over past regrets. Dybbuks try to possess the living to try and act on those regrets, which actually make them somewhat morally ambiguous. Some Dybbuks become outright malevolent, like right away, and they possess people to gain revenge for past slights. Other Dybbuks have benevolent goals. I was going to say malevolent, but no. That was my cat.
Bless you, Toes.
We're talking about Dybbuks and he sneezes. Oh no. Other Dybbuks have benevolent goals, with some Jewish mystics even allowing themselves to become possessed by them, just because it's a good reason, pretty much. The difference between benevolent and malevolent. So. These ghosts typically do not have a specific religious rite performed to allow them to pass on, and with that being said, all Dybbuks tend to pass on once they achieve their goals, regardless of the intent or how it was. However, as their intent may not always have positive results, the Jewish people have their exorcism rituals to get rid of malevolent Dybbuks. So, yeah, and from stories and movies and books like that, there is the Dybbuk box itself, which is that trapped soul, that trapped spirit that tries to possess people. And obviously with a lot of the movies, Dybbuks are bad, obviously. There's a lot more malevolent Dybbuk stories than benevolent Dybbuk stories.
Oh yeah.
Probably because it just makes a better film, but I mean, like, that's scary nonetheless. Like, it possesses somebody to go and do something bad, pretty much. Like, they have to, either, well, I mean, it's a past regret, so, like, it depends, I suppose, but even the malevolent one is probably getting revenge back at somebody, so it is creepy, and to be possessed by a Dybbuk would be very bad indeed. So, next one, I will try to pronounce, because it's a Scandinavian word, the Genganger, but it's a GJ in front of it, so I just put Genjagger.
Yeah.
So Genganger. There you go. I'll just do that. So yeah, this is a type of ghost from Scandinavia, and it describes the restless spirit of a dead person who seeks to drag more people into the grave with it.
Oh, my lord.
The reasons for this restlessness vary a lot. Most of these Genganger involve the spirits of either the murderer or their victims. So it's very dark.
Wow.
Other of these ghosts involve people who died with deep and lifelong regrets. So basically, like, really deep secrets that, like, they took to the grave with them, and now they're back in the spiritual realm like that. So, unlike other types of ghosts, the Genganger, it's always so hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
They appear completely lifelike, with nothing giving away their supernatural natures. This gives them this makes them very dangerous, as there's no way to tell them apart from the living. So that's pretty spooky.
Yeah.
Some of these Scandinavian folklore focus less on appeasing the spirits as much as keeping the dead from becoming one. Typically, people buried according to the Christian funeral rites don't come back as the Genganger. So, but otherwise, because like the Christian faith was like huge, basically in Europe. So, other Scandinavians, however, tended to pile stones and twigs into the funeral monuments called varps in places where people died unusual deaths. So, despite all of the actual funeral rites you know, like with like faith center, they'll still be like, no, we're just gonna do this extra, just in case. We don't want them to pop out of the grave and pull people under with them. So passerbys would then toss twigs on the varp whenever they encountered one, which appeases the dead. Failing to do so risks causing one of these spirits to go after them afterwards. So they'll see like the pile of stones and twigs, and they'll be like, oh, put it on there just in case. You know, you don't want to risk being pulled into the grave by another angry spirit, possibly a murderer spirit or their victims. So that one's a very darker, I guess, a darker spirit where it's just bent on pulling people into the grave with them. So it's kind of scary. Next on the list is called an Ifrit, or Ifrit. There you go. Sorry, Ifrit. It's Ifrit, Ifrit. So I'll just go with that. This is a type of ghost that comes from Islamic mythology. They also have an ambiguous nature, with some sources sometimes describing them as demons from hell. So others describe them as restless spirits of the dead, but either way, they're described as having malicious characters, with bodies formed from fire and smoke. Yeah. That said, they're also sometimes described as able to carry out God's will, actually, which is kind of opposite. Which is meaning avenging past wrongs. So, I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
The Islamic folklore also mentions that the Ifrit isn't fundamentally evil, and they may even turn to a noble purpose. So, I guess there's like I don't know. It's like an in-between spirit where it's a demon from hell, but it's while it's avenging this what did it say? It was avenging something. Oh yeah, okay, so like avenging past wrongs, but maybe during that process they turn good or something. They turn noble for God's will or something. So
That's interesting.
yeah, and like I haven't read up in Islamic mythology and stuff like that very much, so I don't know how that works out, but I just thought it was an interesting spirit that is like in between evil and good. So if anybody knows that, let me know, because I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. Next up is actually the jinn. So yeah, that is also in that area. So the jinn in its common folklore are capable of assuming human or animal forms and are said to dwell in all conceivable inanimate objects, stones, trees, and ruins and the like, and also underneath the earth, in the air, and in the fire. So that's kind of interesting. They possess the bodily needs of human beings and they can be killed, but they are free from all physical restraints. So it's kind of like literally just taking the genie out of the bottle.
Yeah.
Literally that. So it's crazy. Jinn delight in punishing humans for any harm done to them, intentionally or unintentionally. So even if it's an accident, they'll still take revenge on them. And they're responsible for many of the diseases and all kinds of accidents that happen. However, some of these human beings, knowing the proper magical procedure, can exploit the jinn to their advantage. It's basically like their own form of exorcisms in a way. Like if they know how to, I guess, kind of like scare away a jinn, it'll move on to a next object or something like that. So, but I always thought jinns were really interesting, and they're really similar to a genie, but it's like an evil genie.
Yeah.
Because jinns are never really
They're never
presented
up
as good.
to good, yeah.
No.
They're never up to good.
Yeah, and there's like we've seen a couple episodes on YouTube that is most likely a jinn, and I actually now I want to go back and watch it because I know specifically which one, where this guy is going through. I guess I'll just tell it, but he's going through the door, knocking down the doors and stuff like that, and he sees this paper and it just lights on fire. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Where he's just like, oh, that's weird, and then there's like a whole fire on the floor. I'm like, that's not normal, and I think that was a jinn.
Yeah.
Which
he
is,
was live.
Yeah, and he was live. Yeah.
Oh,
So that's crazy.
that was spooky.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So, and then like what I kind of got out of it is that jinns don't really have a form. They're just like one of those like elemental spirits. Like they just kind of like, they go through the air, the earth, all that stuff. So they don't have an actual, like they can assume a form, but I don't think they stay in that kind of form. So.
Yeah.
Next one you might know a little bit about is called La Llorona.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yep. This is one of the most famous types of ghosts in the whole world, actually.
Yes.
La Llorona has its roots in Mexican folklore. The story traditionally there's been a lot of interpretations, but from this side it says that the story traditionally goes that a woman marries a rich man and has 2 children with him. One day, however, she spots him with another woman and angrily responds by drowning the children. She then realizes what she's done and regretfully proceeds to drown herself, pretty much after that. As punishment for killing her children, though, she's denied entry into the afterlife and cursed to wander the earth, vainly looking for her children. But while the modern form of La Llorona forms a part of Mexico's post-colonial culture, scholars have noted similar oral traditions predating the Spanish conquest. So, but even then, it's still kind of in that Spanish, line. In particular, they point to one legend which claims a ghostly woman wandered the streets of Tenochtitlan, whatever that is.
I can't see it. So.
I know it's hard, but it was just before the Spanish conquest. Supposedly, she wept while saying, "My children, we are about to go." So, yeah. So basically, yeah, it's basically like this woman who drowned her kids in revenge, and then she realizes what she does, and then now she's pretty much on the lookout for her kids to bring them with her to the afterlife. But of course, they're already in the afterlife, but she doesn't know that because she can't find their spirits pretty much, which makes sense. So that's her curse, is to forever wander the earth and look for her kids. So
yeah, well, that's funny because I've been told by like several people that grew up over there, pretty much they were birthed over there, that they've heard her, but she never says, my children. They just say it's like a cry.
yeah,
and
because it's like the weeping woman.
Yeah, she's just crying, and she's like, it's like low and high. And I remember when my mom told me when she heard her, she was like, I don't know, she was young, she was like a child. She said that they were outside, and it was getting dark, and it was her and her sister, and out of nowhere they heard a woman crying, like crying so like hard, so like, and they froze because they couldn't move, they were frozen, and they were just looking at each other. They were trying to scream, pretty sure that nothing came out. And then once it was getting closer, it's like, I don't know, it's just like they reacted and they started running home. And then my grandma, she heard it and she's like, come in. Like they all got spooked. And yeah, they closed the doors and they shut the curtains, and she said that she remembers it till this day. Like she remembers the sound and everything, and it wasn't like my kids. It was just a cry. It was just, I still wanna hear her. I wanna see her. I wanna hear her.
Yeah, because I mean, like technically, she's really only after the kids. So I mean, yeah, and that's like, I think like that's a common thing too with her is she's crying all the time. So, which I mean makes sense because she realizes what she did, and so now she's wandering in sadness. So, but so that's I know I was just like, well, I'll bring this into the list because you know all about it. So, okay, so the next one that I got here is called the Onryu. I'll say that one because this is a type of ghost from Japan, and this is a spirit of a woman who died with extreme hate. They stay in the world of the living to avenge the past wrongs. However, they do so with extreme violence. Sadako Yamamura from the Ring franchise, is one of the most iconic examples of this type of ghost in modern media. In particular, she has the Onryu's indiscriminate tendency to attack and kill anybody who her curse falls on. However, even with Sadako's power, it pales in comparison to those of rare male Onryu, usually born of royal blood. So, yeah, it's basically like this like really angry spirit that exacts revenge with very violent tendencies. Like they'll do anything to kill somebody just out of revenge. So it's not that's the one spirit that you don't want to run into, because then they're just bent on killing whoever they choose. They choose somebody and they're like, yep, you're next. So, which makes sense with the whole ring aspect. So, but now you know that Sadako is an Onryu, if that's how you pronounce it. So
just don't watch the film and you'll be fine.
The what?
Don't watch the film and you'll be fine.
Yeah, pretty much. 7 days. Okay. Next one is the Pontianak. The Pontianak. I'll say that one. This is a ghost shared by Indonesian, Malaysian, and Singaporean cultures. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It results from a woman dying in labor along with her child.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sad.
With the ghost taking after her appearance.
Oh.
Yeah. The nature of its death drives the ghost mad, and the spirit using its appearance to lure men to their deaths, usually by eating them.
Whoa.
Which is crazy. So, yeah, it's a very sad and kind of demented spirit because I guess the spirit itself, the malevolent spirit, makes them go mad in a way. Probably because of like the unfair death, because not only did the mother die, but the child died as well, which is a double tragedy.
Oh gosh.
So that's crazy. I mean, there wasn't much about this ghost. That's kind of what I had, but I'm like, that's just.
Yeah, I'd like to read more about that one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and if anybody is curious about any of these and you want me to go further on them, I definitely can, because I really enjoyed looking up the list and learning about these little ghosts. So. Next one that I got is called a Preta. Preta. There we go. Preta. Preta. Let's just say Preta. Translated into English as hungry ghost. It's a kind of ghost common to all of South and East Asian cultures. This result is from its roots in Buddhism and Hinduism, with pretas referring to souls trapped between death and reincarnation in a new life. So, in particular, this results from the failure of the living to perform proper rites during the funeral for the dead, and if the rites do not get performed within a year of the person's death, their soul remains a preta for all eternity, which would suck.
Yeah.
With that said, other conditions exist for a person's soul to become a preta after their death. Usually, only greedy and deceitful people become pretas after they die, which usually reflects their karma. So, I mean, I guess so. That makes sense. Traditionally, this drives them to devour corpses or feces. Yeah, it's kind of disgusting. But modern sources have pretas hungering for other things as well. Either way, this serves as the origin for their name, which means hungry ghost. So, but yeah, I guess like this is basically a ghost that's caught in between, the reincarnation cycle and death, that kind of like limbo phase. So that means they can't go on either side, and if they're trapped for all eternity, that's the first curse, and then the second curse is for them to always be hungry.
Wow.
So, but as it says, like greedy and deceitful people become like that. So it's like they wanted so much in life, so now it's going to reflect them in the afterlife.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
The in between, which is interesting. Which we'll actually get into later in the show, the in between limbo phases and all that stuff. So, a lot of things. Let me see here. I got one left, so this is the last one, and this is called a shade, which is really cool. This is one of the oldest types of ghosts in the world, as it goes as far back as biblical times. Yeah, with shades first mentioned in the Old Testament's book of Samuel, which is usually not in like the modern Bible, I suppose. Like there's Song of Solomon's and stuff like that and things like that, but there's no like Samuel. There's no book of Samuel. There's a lot of books that did not make the modern Bible, which is really interesting, and it actually goes into a lot of spirits and demonic entities. So I don't know why they didn't include it, but you know. But these shades go back into this Old Testament, and scholars have identified the term's origin with widespread beliefs in the ancient Near East over the fates of the dead. In particular, it ties with the common belief of an underworld where the dead live in this underworld under a perpetual shadow. This was later kind of influenced into ancient Greece, where it became reinterpreted as seen in the myth of Orpheus. In the Orpheus myth, he descends into the underworld looking for his dead wife. There he finds the dead reduced to intangible shadows, or literal shades, of their living selves. This later became the origin of the common Western perception of ghosts, having the translucent and intangible appearances when they're still alive. So, the shade is basically like a very, very old type of ghost. Like they didn't call it a ghost back then, I suppose. It was more of like, I suppose, not really a tortured soul, but a soul that still lingered, but it was still in the underworld. So like the whole, I guess, thing of a shade as being the shadow of themselves from their past life, and now they can't go anywhere because they're in the underworld, so they're stuck there.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do.
But yeah, and that's the shade. So that's the list. That's the end of the list that I have for this episode. And obviously there are lots more out there, because it is the entire world and the history of the world. So there are hundreds and thousands of spirits out there and ghost stories and entities. I just kind of highlighted a few that seemed interesting to me. A lot of them, like with the similar traits and whatnot, basically is like trying to go back with past regrets. Like a lot of the spirits had those lingering regrets that they need to go back into life and fix, which seemed like a lot of them, but like just the way that they do it is different and unique. And like appearance or no appearance, or bad or evil or good, it kind of varies in between cultures and stories and beliefs and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think I had a fun time researching and going through the list and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know. So if anybody wants me to go further into specific spirits, or comment below, and I'll probably look into it. So just because it's very expansive, but like for this show, it's kind of like structured in a way. So kind of like introduce you guys to spirits and ghosts from the first episode. Second one, pretty much demonstrating that the world has its own many tales of spirits and whatnot. And going throughout the list, it'll be pretty much just just a list of expansive paranormal stuff. We'll get into exorcisms, rites, how to ward off evil spirits, things like that. How to connect with the dead, things like that. Eventually down the road, but yeah. You have anything else to add to the episode?
No.
No?
It was really interesting though.
Yeah.
I learned about a lot of different type of spirits throughout the world. Just crazy.
Yeah. That was kind of like the whole point too. Yeah. So, and there are plenty more. Yeah. So, okay. And so this is the end of the episode. I also have to plug my own stuff because it is my show. So be sure to check out my other stuff on my channel called Exploring Arda, and it's basically a Tolkien-centered podcast where I go through Tolkien's works other than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So basically all of his other published works. And also check out my book, The Lands of Ordia, Power of Heaven. That is on Amazon. I've spent many years creating its history, the lore, writing it, and all that stuff. I'm in the process of writing the second book. It'll be a 5-book series, so I would appreciate it if you guys would snag a copy and patiently wait for the next one, because it is taking a while, but it is fun. It's a project of passion, so I like it. I think with all that being said, just stay tuned for another episode, and stay spooky, everybody. Bye!